Oh, there he is.
Oh my God! At the
Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
When people talk about what they enjoy about spring, they talk about things like warmer weather. They talk about things like spring break. But for 138 FBS programs, the hopes and dreams of their college football season, their work begins today. And so is our work here on College Football Red Zone, previewing, at least giving a first look at all 138 FBS teams in major college football. And we kick things off tonight with one of the funnest conferences in all of college football. Welcome everybody to College Football Red Zone, your exclusive home for 7+ hours of commercial-free college football. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a historical night here tonight. We have the full contingent live on the show. We got, if you love his thumbnails, you love this man, Reed Napper, repping the North. We got Colton O&O from a completely undisclosed location. He's joining the show as well. And then, of course, in the heart of the South, in the heart of Sun Belt country, we got my man AT of Tampa 2 College Football. Boys, how are we doing here tonight, man?
Pretty epic.
I'm fired up.
Me.
Gotta love a full house. A full house of the four boys. I mean, talking college football. Yet again, what gets better than this? Love it.
Yeah,
Animal House. Good movie. Good movie.
Yeah, one person short of an incredible burger, or at least that's what I was told of, like from the folks over at Five Guys. But we have an incredible show tonight. We, as you can see from the title of this video, we are going to preview the Sun Belt, give our thoughts about who we think are the best teams, who we think is a team that's lagging behind just a little bit. Every one of us is going to give our 1 through 14 in terms of Sun Belt rankings as we start to get into the month of March and into spring football. So with that being said, we got ourselves an incredible show here tonight. I hope you guys stick around, enjoy that popcorn, enjoy your favorite drink, hit that like and subscribe button as well. And before we jump into these rankings, I got to say, this has been one of the most fascinating conferences. I love to call it the Fun Belt. And guys, we even had a college football playoff team come from here last year.
Yeah, we did. I would expect kind of the same from James Madison, not to preview kind of where I'm about to go with my top rankings here, but
spoilers.
One of the dominant teams. They've been so good in the Sun Belt, and I'm excited to watch them play. Obviously, they've got the man himself, Sun Belt Billy, back in the Sun Belt, and I think he's going to do a great job there. So yeah, I mean, and honestly, they didn't look terrible against Oregon. Everyone loves to say that's a blowout, but then Oregon turned around and got whipped even worse than that in their game. So it's like, was it really that bad of a game for them? I think they did good representing the G5 last season.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about really like comparing like Tulane and James Madison, I thought even before the playoffs started, I thought James Madison was a better football team than Tulane was going into the college football playoff. Tulane, with that strength of schedule advantage, they did end up getting seeded higher because of that. But I actually like agree with you, AT. I think this James Madison football team, I thought they did a better job overall representing themselves, versus someone like a Tulane, who, at least James Madison showed up for a half. I don't know if you could say the same thing about their American counterparts that represented the American Conference in the CFP.
But how many winning opponents did JMU play within conference play?
All right, we're going to start off with a 30-minute debate on who is better between Tulane and James Madison. Okay, that's going to be the first half of this live stream.
Hey, only one team had to play America's troops, so take that for what you will.
Oh, that is very true. It's hard to go up against our strong Patriots. It's a very good point as well. That being said, so how this show is going to work, we're going to give our rankings from a 1 through 14 perspective. I'm going to go ahead and drop the big board. As we go ahead and where did my man AT go? Hang on, we lost AT,
and he's dead.
All right, there's AT. All right, AT is back. He's very much alive after all. Incredible stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start from the bottom. That's what I was told when I was listening to Drake this morning. We're gonna start from the bottom. We're gonna work our way up to number one. So I'm gonna go ahead and kick things off here and get things going. So for my number 14 team, I'm gonna go ahead and say this, and I'm curious to see if you guys think the same way as well. I had UL Monroe as my number 14 team in this conference going into this year. So big reason for that is I look at this UNL Monroe team, and it's essentially the same team from last year, which sounds great, right? Having virtually the same team as last year. The problem is that team went 3-9. They didn't win a single game, I believe, in October or November. And you can even venture to say that they got a little bit worse as well. Braylon McReynolds, he was their starting running back last year, had over 700 scrimmage yards. He ends up transferring to UAB. So essentially the same team last year. It's not Brian Vincent's fault. This has typically been one of the more difficult places to go win at. So I have UNL Monroe as my number 14 team, but I'm very curious to see, if you guys feel the same way as well, or, is someone in here even a little bit higher on the Warhawks than I am?
I will back you. I will back you up, Jake. I will back you up. I also have UL Monroe as the last place team, just solely because also you said it perfectly. 3-9 record is basically the same team as last year. They didn't really do much on the recruiting and transfer portal side either. They ranked last in the Sun Belt for their recruiting class this year. And then their transfer, they were 8th in the conference. They had 20 incoming transfers. So take that for what you will. It's pretty, they lost one of their best offensive players to the portal. So I fear UL Monroe is going to be a bottom feeder in this conference in 2026.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with that as well. Although I saw Colton, he looked like he was ready to make a defiant stand. Is my man feeling the Warhawks more of?
I'm not ready necessarily to make a definitive stand on ULM, but what I will say is I definitely think that there are worse teams coming into this conference in 2026. Mine, and this is a bit of reheated in the microwave. I'm going Georgia State, 1-11 last year, and you can say they were super talented. They're going into 2026 looking maybe a little bit better all around in terms of roster. I am just not confident overall. They had the most talented roster in the Sun Belt according to 24/7 last year, and you saw it didn't really make a difference. So I am reheating last year's leftovers, going with Georgia State. They restructure their offensive line, which could make their offensive ceiling higher, but and they do have a promising quarterback in Cameron Brown. I wouldn't say he's necessarily super polished, or I'm not super high on him in general, but he is promising. I will say that. But overall, no major upgrades from what I can see on defensive line. I don't think they get that much better in terms of defense at all. So I'll say that Georgia State is the team I'm looking forward to least in this conference next year.
That's a good pull. I'm unfortunately on the same boat as the other two guys. I got ULM as the bottom feeder right now. Just no hype behind them really. I mean, it's a tough place to go win. You would think that they would be able to recruit a little bit better being in Louisiana personally, just because of the talent pool out of there. But it's just not been looking good. It's no hate to them. Just not excited. Nothing really piqued my interest in the research that I was doing, and nothing really stood out. And like you were saying, Jake, it's kind of the same team we saw last year. I don't feel like they're just improving. But in this game, it is going to be interesting to see what that looks like. I would love for them to do well, and then we can come back to this and say, hey, it's because they had the same squad, and we can say that it's a good thing to have some longevity or some consistency, I should say, in your team. But I'm just not excited about them right now.
Yeah, and we saw, and I actually saw the question being posed, even with the Warhawks almost consensusly being at the very bottom of the Sun Belt, at least us here at College Football Red Zone. The non-conference schedule is somewhat navigable for the Warhawks, right? You do have an FCS game baked in there. That should be a winnable game. But then you do also have UAB and FAU, two teams that didn't make a bowl game last year. You have them in the non-conference schedule. So those could be winnable games for the Warhawks. And then, maybe if you get a little bit lucky, you get some of these teams that are in the bottom half in the Sun Belt, you get them as home games. Even though I think most of us agree that we think they're going to be the worst team in the conference from a baseline perspective, I still think that there is a path for the Warhawks to make a bowl game, but it's going to be dependent on what their schedule looks like, if they're going to get the benefit of the doubt and get a good draw when the Sun Belt schedule does come out.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And I'm interested to see who they pull, but I feel like they're just kind of at the bottom of the barrel right now. It's going to be interesting to see. I feel like we really won't know anything about any of these guys until, week 3 or week 4 of the season, obviously. But as of right now, just no excitement there.
Totally agree.
Yeah, although I will say I was very close to I really considered moving them up a little bit, because I was, like you mentioned, Colton, I was very close to putting Georgia State at the very bottom as well. They ended up being my number 13 team. The reason why is I had them a little bit higher is I looked at some of the transfer portal additions, and got to give credit to at least Del McGee to mixing things up a little bit. Went into the transfer portal and got some guys from the FCS level that did have some production, and bring them up. You also do end up bringing in a couple of former blue chip recruits on the offensive and defensive line, so the trench play should be better as well. But I still look at this Georgia State team, not much better. I think they'll be better than 1-11. I will say that, but I'm still not giving Georgia State a ton of trust here. And I particularly don't trust Del McGee either, because I think Georgia State has more resources, but Del McGee doesn't do as good of a job of handling those resources, if that makes sense.
Completely agree.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. That's where I've got them there too. I mean, they obviously did not have a good year last year. Pretty much got dominating in conference play all year. I'm just not hype on them. They did do a better job of getting into the portal and getting some players. I think they were like 8th in the conference, if I remember right. I got pulled up here, or 9th in the conference total. So they out recruited somebody like Old Dominion on the portal side at least, and that was kind of interesting to me, because I feel like ODU had a pretty good year. But I'm still just not excited about them. I think they're kind of, I don't know, they got to prove. It's just like ULM. I mean, until otherwise proven, I'm just not excited. I don't see any life there. And until we see some games and get some actual footage, I can't be excited about them right now. So
I differ here.
Ooh,
we are not all aligned.
I also differ here, so let's see.
I am going with the supposed newcomer to the conference. I'm going with Louisiana Tech. Now, because of that, they didn't really, make a lot of additions portal wise and recruiting. Their portal, they only brought in 11 portal players. So, and I think they're gonna have a tough go of it just solely because after their non-conference as LSU and Baylor and Army. So I think just solely based on the non-conference, they're gonna have a tough run at it afterwards, and it's hard if you like. They start off with Northwestern State. That's cool. You probably will start 1-0, but they could easily be 1-3 after the non-conference schedule. So I think just solely based off of that, it's gonna be a deflator to start their season.
So Reed, I'm gonna go ahead and give your I'm really curious to see what your 13th ranked team is, but then I'm gonna jump in here on my thoughts on Louisiana Tech. I'm gonna tell you right now, Reed, I have a very different view on this Bulldogs football team.
Yeah,
I do too. They're much higher on my list, but
yeah, I think they're going to be scattered. I think they're going to be they're a very volatile team. But my 13, personally, I have Arkansas State, which might come as a surprise. They do lose their quarterback from last year, Jalen Rayner, who made up a ton of their offense, 3,700 yards, 26 touchdowns. On top of that, they were just generally bad defensively last year, which doesn't give me hope for them. If they did have that kind of, smash mouth defensive element, I would be able to put them higher, but not super confident in them as a defense in general. And plus, they lose their best player on offense. They do add Trey Owens from Texas, which is there's some excitement to be had about that. I don't know if he'll come in and be able to immediately replace the production of a guy like Jalen Rayner. And I just don't think from what they've lost from last year that they add enough for me to really be excited about this team. I'm also not a huge fan of Butch Jones. I will be the first to admit it. They haven't really broke through the ceiling of what a lot of people thought they could be when they acquired Butch Jones. And I think this could be, if not the end of the tenure, the giant smoking red flag. That's not the saying, but you know what I'm getting at. That eventually sets off Butch Jones no longer being the head coach at Arkansas State.
Yeah, that's a very good point as well. Although I will give Butch Jones credit over the last couple of years. I thought Butch Jones has Arkansas State going in the right direction, particularly like last year where we saw some good moments from this Red Wolves football team, giving Iowa State now with head coach like Matt Campbell over at Penn State, giving them even a rough time. And honestly, Arkansas State should have won that game and then finishing the year strong with that Xbox Bowl victory over Missouri State, which was a very good football team in their first year in the FCS. Definitely, I think it's a possibility that they take a step back. But I don't know if I'm going to have them this low, right? I think this Arkansas State football team, I can actually still see them finishing in the top half, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's tough. I mean, this is another team that, I feel like this is like a stepping stone program. You've seen a lot of really good head coaches come from Arkansas State. There was a time period where I feel like everybody was just pulling whoever they had. But now, looking at it, I kind of agree about Butch, but I do think he's kind of fit for this level of football. I think he's a good G5 head coach. I don't know if he's going to get the, Sun Belt Billy moniker that Billy Napier did. And how we see Billy not do great at Florida, but he's always been just unbelievable in these lower G5 type conferences. But I do think they're a little bit better than 13, but it's just tough to tell. I'm not just super hype on them either. So I could see them definitely taking a step back next year and not being good, honestly.
Yeah. And another team that I think maybe not necessarily take a step back, but I don't think they're going to necessarily take a step forward either is the team that I have coming in at number 12 in my Sun Belt rankings. That's South Alabama. The South Alabama Jaguars, they had a rough go at it last year. It was clear that they missed Gio Lopez when he entered the transfer portal last year to go and be the quarterback for Bill Belichick, who should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but, I digress. So this team struggled over the course of last year, but then this was also a team that in the transfer portal, there was more talent leaving the program than entering, right? You're talking about guys like a Breck Long, for example. He's transferring to North Texas. And then They lost a good chunk of their defense last year as well. You know, Leslie Miller, Ed Smith, Brian Myrick, and Naheem Chandler, they're all out the door and they went to other programs. Really, the only person of note that I was a little bit intrigued by from this South Alabama transfer portal class was Macy Lewis. He is a edge rusher from McNeese State out of the FCS level. He had 5.5 sacks last year, so maybe that could be something's a little bit intriguing. And so I look at this team that really struggled in 2025, and I actually think they could be a little bit worse too, but I don't think they took as much of a step back as maybe like a Georgia State or a UL Monroe. But going into this year, I don't have a ton of confidence in the South Alabama Jaguars either.
Yeah, I agree. I got them pretty low on the list as well. I'm just not necessarily super hype about them. But I mean, for my number 12 team, I've actually got Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, sitting there. I know they kind of had a little bit of a better season last year, but I just think that they're kind of in a rough spot. They didn't recruit well at all. I mean, I don't really know what to think about their head coach, if I'm being completely honest. He's kind of just been there for, 4 seasons now? Michael Desormeaux. I don't know how to say his name, if I'm being honest, but he's definitely got a good Louisiana name. But I'm not hype on them. They're sitting at my number 12 right now. Just don't really know what to expect for the Raging Cajuns going into next season, and no confidence really.
Yeah, I had them relatively low as well, just a touch higher, but I guess we'll get there when we get there. I have at 12 the Troy Trojans, and this team, they won 8 games last year, but they were a complete anomaly. I mean, bottom 5 offense nationally, not great defensively, although the defense did make up for it at times. Their offense was just completely uninspiring, in my opinion. The fact that they won 8 games, like I said, it is just an anomaly. They lose a ton of production on top of that from last season. They lose their starting running back. They lose 2 of their top 3 wide receivers. And in my opinion, they don't add enough. They add just 5 transfers through the transfer portal, according to On3. Not high on them as an offense, obviously, because they sucked last year. So not a ton of redeeming qualities about this Troy team, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have some fun luck with this one tonight. Definitely gonna be some diverse spots like here on the channel tonight. Reed, I'm curious, like for your number 12, are you kind of leaning towards my direction, or are you leaning towards ATs and Colton? Reed,
This is where I have Georgia State. I have Georgia State a little bit better than last year, but still in that bottom of the barrel grouping that we have here. So this is where I have Georgia State. I'm not going to reiterate what the 3 of you have also talked about, but yeah, I have Georgia State a little bit higher.
Okay.
So it seems we all are in the similar range for Georgia State, just differing on where exactly in the bottom, I guess, 4th of the conference.
We're not hype on them, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, no. I will point out 32 incoming transfers. They have a handful from Power 4 levels: Georgia, LSU, Iowa State, Florida, Oklahoma State, Clemson. Like there's a handful of talent here for this Georgia State roster. It's just a classic transfer portal heavy team. Are they going to be able to be cohesive as a unit, in 6 months when we're in fall practice? So this is a huge spring for Georgia State. I think there's definitely a ceiling with this team that they could be, a top 6 team potentially if all of their transfers pan out. But then again, that's a huge if. We've seen portal heavy teams in the past, and I'm going to use Florida State as an example here. The last 2 years they've gone portal heavy. They went 2-10 and 5-7. So if you go portal heavy, it doesn't always translate to wins. So
yeah, and I will say this is also a really important year for Del McGee as well, going into year number 3. I was a little surprised that he was retained as head coach after his second year. They took a step back, even when, from what we heard from them in the spring and in the summertime, that this Georgia State team was supposed to be an improved football outfit. I would imagine that if we don't see that significant step forward to where at least to the point where they're flirting with bowl eligibility, I would imagine that we could see Georgia State looking for a new head coach when we get to this point next year.
They
Yeah,
do
completely
have
agree.
they do have one intriguing non-conference matchup at Kennesaw State. I think that could be a pretty good matchup for them, just solely because, Kennesaw State riding the high of, going 10-3 and winning their conference. So, but there are other two non-conference games that we know of at Central Florida and NIU at home. So it's not the easiest of non-conference schedules, but I think that Kennesaw State one's definitely going to be one to watch out for with Georgia State.
Yeah, and another thing that I'm certainly noticing on our board, I'm seeing like so many UM Monroe haters like here on the show tonight. We all have them on the bottom. Colton, on the other hand, I don't see that UM Monroe logo, so I'm curious if we're starting to get close to where you have the Warhawks, or you have them even higher than maybe even my wildest dreams.
It really depends on how you look at it. I love this ULM team, not for any particular reason. I just love me some Louisiana Monroe football. But that being said, this is exactly where I have them. I have them at my 11th spot for a lot of the reasons that we've already mentioned. I mean, obviously U3 had ULM at the very bottom. I like some of their returning production numbers. I think they could do at least marginally better than they did last year. And I think mainly I'm not as high on this Louisiana Monroe football team as I am low on some of the other teams below them. It really is more vibes based. I don't like all three of the teams below them more than I like Louisiana Monroe, if that makes any sense.
I'll agree with you on that, Colton. This entire list, until we maybe get to like the top three, is completely vibes based for me. And I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if I'm right or if I'm going to be completely wrong come the season. But yeah, it's all vibes based. I don't know what else to how to recruit, how to look at these guys, because it's so tough to tell going.
Essentially, what it is for me is they retain one of their top running backs. I think they will be able to lean on him as an offense. They were generally inefficient last year. I expect them to be generally inefficient again. I don't have them in my top half of this. I'm not expecting them to be good necessarily, just maybe a bit better, or at least not as bad, like I said, as a Troy and Arkansas State or Georgia State.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, man, we at least have one ULM believer. We did save the graphic, so to speak, because if ULM Monroe, they go off, at least like Colin say that he, like you kind of call it. So at least, we got that going for us here tonight. Nothing like saving the graphic. I appreciate you, Colton. I'm going to go ahead and jump into my number 11 team. In my number 11 team, I actually have Appalachian State. I've Mountaineers as my number 11 team in the country. I do like that they do return one of their all-conference players from last year in Colton Fairs. He's a second-team all-conference guy, plays at that linebacker position. But then other than that, they lost again, lost quite a bit of talent in the transfer portal. They lost their starting quarterbacks. AJ Swan, he left to go play for Mississippi State. So I know you're fond of him in particular and what he can do for you. They also lost several of their stars in the transfer portal as well to the Big 12 and SEC teams at all three levels as well. Plus they lose their kicker, which doesn't sound like much, but special teams plays such a pivotal role in any given Saturday type environment that we do see in the Sun Belt. So with all those losses, and I didn't love the additions that they brought in return. They do bring in Josh Williams, who transfers in out of the Pioneer League in Dayton. Shout out to my hometown at Wayne High School graduate. So really, I'm pulling for him, but I'm not necessarily high in this Appalachian State team either.
Yeah, I would say that's fair based on all the reasons you gave. I am a little bit higher, but it's for one particular reason. I'm not super high on this App State team, but I'm curious to see what the other two in this call think as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I've got App State in the exact same spot, and this was kind of a last-minute switch for me. And it's yet again, it's vibes based. I in my notes, I actually had them one spot higher, but I flipped them with my number 10 team. And so I'm just kind of in yeah, it's just vibes based. I mean, yeah, they lost their starting quarterback. This is not the only team. This is a trend across the Sun Belt. All these guys are losing their best players, which I guess is going to be a trend moving forward in college football, because if they do a good job in the G5, we're going to see them move up to the Power Four. So I mean, it is kind of sad to see. But AJ Swan not going to start at Mississippi State. There's other guys that left for other programs that they're not going to start at, and I don't really know why. I guess money might have something to do with it, or just exposure, or maybe they want to get into coaching. I'm not sure what the move was there. But just not hype on App State. They did not do a good job recruiting either. They came really low on the board in both the transfer portal and in the overall recruiting class. So just not really excited about them. Yet again, it's pretty vibes based, but I don't see them doing good next season.
Yeah, and it's a shame too if App State ends up having a subpar season yet again, because their football stadium is absolutely incredible. Absolutely love their backdrop. So I'm always pulling for Appalachian State to be good. They're a fun team to play with. For those of you that had college football revamp, App State was included in college football revamp. So App State, fun team to play with. Always pulling from them just from a soft spot perspective. But I agree with everything that you're saying, AT.
Yeah. That's where I'm at with them right now. It's tough. I love App State. They were the giant killers for so long, and I would love them to do that again. But just not excited about them this season.
I'm going with Southern Miss at 11. I think Will Anderson as the replacement for Charles Huff isn't going to pan out well, and I've talked about it on the show with Jake before. I'm not going to go into detail here, but Will Anderson doesn't have the best pass as a head coach. So I think Southern Miss is going to take a hit here. I like the portal additions that they made, but I think just this is again, like AT pointed out, this is mostly vibes at this juncture of the rankings. So I'm not feeling confident in Southern Miss, but I think they have enough portal additions that they could, shock some people and be in that upper half of the conference. But this is where I'm feeling comfortable with them right now.
Yeah, and I honestly don't blame you, Reed. I mean, I don't have Southern Miss as my next team up, but I'm not too far off for a lot of things that you mentioned. Just thought that they lost. I thought they were going to be a type of team that's probably going to take the biggest step back out of all the teams in the Sun Belt. Blake Anderson, I'm not. There's worse head coaches out there in the G5, but Blake Anderson, he's fine. I mean, he's fine. He's probably average to below average, to be honest, as a head coach. So I do think it's possible we do see Southern Miss take a step back for sure.
Yeah. And I'll just go ahead and say, Reed, I agree with you here. This was the switch I made with App State. This is my number 10. So, and the reason is, if I'm being completely honest, is because I'm a Mississippi boy and I had to at least get USM in the top 10 here. So that was literally the reasoning behind the switch. I have no hype for them. It's the same thing that happened when Charles Huff left Marshall. He gutted the team, went to Southern Miss, had a good year. He left Southern Miss to Memphis. He gutted the team again. I mean, they made some good portal additions, but just not enough to be excited about them. They lost a lot of talent, and they lost a really good head coach in Charles Huff. I think he's a fantastic player developer and player evaluator, especially for the low level that he's been in. Been the head of recruiting for a lot of really big programs, and so I think he knows what he's doing when he's getting talent. And I hate to see Southern Miss get him for one season and then lose him right after. It's tough.
Especially after that one season going in 7-5, like in your first year, that's a pretty solid, standard at Southern Miss. And then like exactly what you said, AT goes and takes another higher job, guts the team. Like it's hard to replace all that production and the coaching staff for sure.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say is a plus for him though, for Blake Anderson, is that he at least was a coordinator on the Southern Miss staff last year, so at least he has more familiarity than if they went to someone on the outside looking in as our next head coach. It's going to be very fascinating, I think, moving forward to see if this Blake Anderson era is it going to be closer to what we saw from Charles Huff and what he could have done if Charles Huff stayed for more than a year. Or do we see a return back to the Will Hall days where Southern Miss really struggled to get by in terms of being competitive in this conference?
Yeah, I would love to see it. I mean, it sucks. I feel bad for the the Eagles there. A lot of their fans loved Charles Huff. They loved what he was building there, and they saw some longevity. But it just didn't happen for him. And I think that it's going to be a really tough season for him next year. I could actually see them being lower on the list if I'm being completely honest. But I hope to see them at least, win a couple conference games and at least get recognized as a decent team in the Sun Belt. So.
Yeah, and speaking of our Lord and Savior in Charles Huff, though, I do have Marshall coming in as my number 10 team on this list. I wanted to say that Tony Gibson did an admirable job last year with how Charles Huff did gut this team and took all of his best pieces over to Southern Miss after Marshall won the Sun Belt title a couple of years ago. 5-7. That was higher than really what I anticipated. I thought that we were going to see them at the very bottom of the conference this time last year, from my perspective. That being said, moving into year number 2, they do have a couple of their key guys returning. They got a couple of all-conference guys. Toby Payne, the tight end. He was a first-team All-Sun Belt nominee last year. He's back. And then they do also have a really good offensive lineman in Jalen Slappy. But then beyond that, it's not even that I think Marshall is worse than last year, but I don't think they got better. They're kind of stuck. So, I see them in this range to where, Marshall can give any team in this conference a hard time. We saw it with them last year where they pulled the upset off on Old Dominion, one of the better teams, not only in the Sun Belt and the G5, but I don't think that they take that step forward necessarily. So I have Marshall capped at 10 for right now.
And for me, like I think everybody in this call has said so far, it's going to get a little dicey because there are definitely some teams on here, and I won't say, I guess, who exactly, but you can infer based on the team that Jake just mentioned. I got some teams higher on this list, but at my 10, this is where I have Louisiana. I agree with everything AT said about Michael. I believe it's Desormeaux. I could be wrong. Something like that.
Right. That sounds way better than what I came up with.
When you said it, the wheels in my brain got turned. I'm like, I'm gonna try it. I think that's it. They only add one player in the portal, like AT said. Their quarterback's name is Lunch, which, I mean, if we're talking about vibes, that's a pretty good vibe. Who doesn't love lunch?
I love lunch. It's my favorite meal.
Yeah. They lose Zylan Perry. They lose Bill Davis. The biggest thing for them is going to be running the ball and stopping the run, because they were not good at stopping the run last year. Obviously, like I just said, they lose their best running backs from last season, and not super high considering that.
Yeah, I'm not hype on them either. It's tough to see, but yet again, I think all the Louisiana teams should be able to recruit at a decent level, because once all the upper echelon goes to LSU, I feel like they should be able to feed into some of those guys. But at the same time, yet again, now in the day and age that we're in, once they get those good high school recruits, they're just going to transfer out in a year or two, and that's what sucks about being a good player in the being a good player in the G5. Pretty much means you're not going to be at that team next year. Sorry.
For sure. Yeah, sure. My number 10, I'm going Arkansas State here. Similar to Colton's thought process, I think this is a big year for Butch Jones. I mean, they have to at least make a bowl game for him to be able to keep his job, I think. And I think it's gonna be an uphill battle. They lost a lot of production in the portal. Namely Jalen Rayner to Iowa State. They got a good haul back in the portal, but nothing too crazy. A couple of power forward additions through the portal, but again, nothing to really write home about. So again, vibes here. So Arkansas State, I'm kind of like in that middle of the pack. I was ranging them between 6 to 10. So I'm putting them at the bottom of that group. So Arkansas State at 10 for me.
All right, so we got our top 10 established. I do love the diversity of thought in here, and I know that we recently talked about Louisiana as well. And I know G5 Hive, appreciate you coming through to the show here tonight. He's got some thoughts on Louisiana as well. So I do have Louisiana come in at number 9. They're my number 9 team for me in the Sun Belt. I am in spite of the fact that I think that they did lose a little bit more than what they gained for the transfer portal. I am intrigued though by Princeton Malbrew, the linebacker that transferred in from LSU, that could very well not only be a starter right away for this Raging Cajuns team, but could be a potential breakout candidate, be an all conference type like here in 2026 as well. And I thought that Michael, well, you're going to find out that I'm a Northern guy real quick. Michael Desaruk is I actually really like how this program has been structured under his tutelage. In my program rankings, I have Louisiana as the best program in this conference, just based upon what they've been over the last 5 years, just from a consistency standpoint, being able to have that consistency at the head coach position. He's not talked about enough because his record isn't great, 29-25. But with that being said, I think he's done an incredible job. And because of that, even though they may have lost more than what they gained, I'm willing to give them a little bit more benefit of the doubt in this situation. So that's why I have Louisiana as my number 9 team, in spite of, on paper, they may not be as good as last year.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't. First off, I'll say I don't think any of us know how to pronounce his last name. That's one thing I'm certain on. I think Colton was the closest. I think you got really, really close on that one. But other than that, I mean, yeah, it's vibes with them. I mean, I really don't know what to expect. I do love the longevity of head coach. It's rare nowadays. So hopefully he can kind of get it together and produce a little bit better than he did this last season. But it's tough to tell. It's really tough to tell. I mean, I can go ahead and give my 9 here. I'm yet again, I think I'm one behind Reed on about every pick. I've got Ark State right here, or one ahead, I should say. I've got Ark State sitting here. Just not really that excited about them. Like you said, they lost their quarterback, which is kind of a trend here. They did add some portal guys. They kind of got some guys out of some Power 4 conference or teams, I should say. But it's nothing that's just really standing out to me. I kind of agree with everything Reed said about him. I'm not really have much more to add to it there, other than the fact that we just don't really know much about him. I think they are a good team. I think they can be good. Butch Jones is, a coach that's been at the Power 4 level, but just not excited about him moving into next season. So,
yeah, I'm definitely on the same page, although I am a bit more extreme in my belief or my discomfort with Butch Jones next year. But for my 9, it's going to be Southern Miss here. Like we've said already, for Southern Miss, they lose Charles Huff. They lose Braylon Braxton, which is almost as important as losing Charles Huff, in my opinion. He was a lot of their offense, all-conference kind of player. I am cautiously optimistic about their defense this year because they do retain a solid amount of snaps from that defense. And the volume numbers weren't there for Southern Miss. Obviously, they gave up like 400-something yards per game. But if you look at their efficiency numbers, they were a little bit better. So a little bit deceptively bad. I think they could get better in that aspect. Still not super high, obviously, with them being in the bottom half of my list. But, yeah, they do get a little bit better on defensive line through the portal. Defensively, I'm a little bit more optimistic than I think most people are about this team, but that's really all I have to say about them as a team overall.
Yeah, and they could be good. I mean, they could be good, but I'm not excited. So
yeah.
And what's interesting is we have a little bit of a Connect 4 going. So I really hope, Jake, that if Southern Miss isn't your 8, that they might get switched around, because that would be awesome.
Love it.
Well, we'll see. I'm gonna wait to see what Reed has for his 9, and then we'll see if we actually have that Connect 4 or not.
Yeah, this is my App State spot. Again, like AT and Jake we're talking about with App State. I don't have much to add here. I mean, App State's one of those teams, like you guys were saying, we just hope ends up good, just solely because of the environment in that stadium that they have. In Boone, in the mountains, it's honestly, it looks beautiful. I need to get down there for a game. So this is where I have App State. A couple of portal additions that I liked, but again, they're a toss-up team for me for sure.
Yeah, so Colton, you're not gonna believe this, but at number 8, I actually this is not even me. I'm like switching anything around. I actually did have Southern Miss as my
Let's
number 8
go.
team. I actually did. Listen, I am concerned about the Southern Miss team, just from the standpoint of how not only the fact that they do have a new head coach, that is. The last time that he did have a head coaching job, he did end up getting fired. Some of that being for more personal reasons. But at the same time, though, there's still quite a bit of talent, like to work off of, and he does have experience winning. Still some leftovers for a program that did just lose their head coach. They did get gutted. So there's still some pieces here. So I think they're going to take a step back, which is why I don't have them in the top half of the Sun Belt, like I would this time last year. But I still think it's a solid football team. I still think that Blake Anderson knows what it takes to win in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I think he has his team competitive in year one.
That would be awesome. I'll be honest. Yet again, as a Mississippi guy, I cheer for them. And one thing I'll say about Southern Miss, fantastic baseball program, and they love to chirp. They do love to talk a lot of noise. So it would be interesting to see. I think that you guys, if they did end up being good, I think we'd see a lot of talk from them on Twitter, and we'd all get to laugh at that at least. But yeah, hopefully you're right. I hope they have a good season. I think Blake Anderson could do a good job. Just never know with the first year head coach, especially somebody coming out of a coordinator position. It's tough to promote from within the program. So
Yeah, and a lot of that is trying to keep the program together. Like I think we've said, um, that is a big part, especially for a G5 team, to be able to retain talent because as we all know, in the NIL and portal era, it's very hard to do. A lot of these teams towards the top half of the conference, I think that will be true for all of us, is that they will be built a lot through the portal, primarily probably through the portal. A team that I have that we've already talked about, so I'll keep it brief, is App State. I have them slightly over what you guys are projecting just because they do add a lot of snaps through the portal, like I said. And I like a Dowell Loggins offense with a mobile quarterback. They get Malachi Singleton, who has shown some promise. He was sought after coming out of high school, hasn't really lived up to the hype. But I think if he gets the starting job, I like their offense a little bit more. It's something we didn't get to see enough of last year with Dowell Loggins as the App State head coach. So I am a little bit more optimistic if they have that kind of mobile element to their offense this year.
yeah, they could be good. Yeah, they were the giant killers for a year. I'd love to see them go back to that. Here at my number 8, though, I've got Marshall sitting here. Tough. I would love Marshall to be a top 5 team in the Sun Belt. I hate what happened to them 2 seasons ago after we watched them just get gutted and Charles Huff leave for USM. And then, but I believe in Tony Gibson. I'm not necessarily sure why. I just think he's a good head coach. I think what he was able to do last season, because with the Huff leaving, it was kind of a weird timing. They didn't really have a lot of time to get to recruits, but I think he held the team together well and did a really good job at getting them to at least a competitive standpoint. I mean, it's not like they were the top of the program or anything, obviously, but I do think that they have some momentum here, and I do like Tony Gibson as a head coach over there. So I think that he could get the guys together, and from a pure coaching standpoint, they didn't just knock it out recruiting wise. I'm looking kind of solely on the transfer portal with these teams because I feel like that's where the Sun Belt's going to thrive. They were middle of the pack, but I think that with him coming back and being able to stay around there, I think that they could be a good football team. I think they could be higher than what I've got them at number 8, but I just don't know yet. And obviously you just can't put them any higher than where they are now. So that's why I've got them at number 8.
Yeah, and I definitely want to give Tony Gibson his flowers too. And I did when I first brought him up as my number 10 team. The thing that I'm just really curious about with them is I think last year we saw kind of that rally around the flag effect when we did see Charles Huff depart in the way that he did for Southern Miss. And now that we're over a year away from that particular experience, we're going to start to see that rally around the flag effect kind of wear off. Can Marshall continue that momentum and be competitive, or do we see kind of where like a lot of pundits, like I see Budge, for example, had Marshall going into the last offseason? It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. They're kind of an anomaly, I feel like, right now in the Sun Belt.
For sure. This I have Louisiana at 8. Kind of higher on them. I mean, again, like you guys said, their portal incoming isn't the best, but like Jake was talking about, Princeton Malbrew, I think is definitely a defensive player to watch in this conference, coming from LSU. Rated as a 3-star linebacker to 247 Sports, but I think he has the upside, especially coming from that level of a Power 4 program, to make an impact on the defensive side. And I think if they get some, quarterback play to replace Walker Howard, I think that I really think that they could, potentially make a push here. So Louisiana, again, one of those, teams I have, that could go either way. So I'm cool putting them near the middle here for sure.
Yeah,
That's
which
half.
we are
Half of the
officially
teams.
halfway there, and guys, we're not even living on a prayer. No, hopefully, you guys are out there. Y'all are enjoying this first of what's going to be several like deep dives of all 138 FBS teams. Hopefully, you're enjoying yourself. If you're enjoying this live stream, make sure you go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're watching this on other platforms such as the Twitch or Twitter, we got a fair number of people watching on Twitter right now. Appreciate y'all doing that. Make sure you go ahead and hit that follow button. We're kicking it. We're bringing that up at top tier analysis and at least the good vibes, over the course of the week, even outside of the live show. So really appreciate that. As we now jump into the top half of this conference, and now we really get into teams that really have a legitimate shot of either being in that championship conversation or being considered a favorite, right? So this gets really fascinating from here on out. So for number 7, I'm going to go ahead and kick things off with the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina. I really like this head coaching hire that Coastal Carolina did over the course of this offseason, getting a Ryan Beard who led Missouri State through its transition into the FBS, taking that program that has considerably less resources in Coastal Carolina and leading them to a bowl game in its very first season of FBS football. I think that just shows how good of a coach Ryan Beard is, and frankly, I think he's a coach on the rise. And at Coastal Carolina, this is a school that has high expectations for itself. It's not very often that we do see G5 coaches, unless it's for a character reason, fire somebody because they went 6-6 or 7-5. This Coastal Carolina team has expectations to compete at a high level in this conference. Don't know if they're going to get there in the first year. They did lose a couple of key guys, like an Ezekiel Durham Campbell, for example. He transferred to West Virginia. But I do like the transfers here as well. I'm really high on Ryan Beard. So that's why I have the Chanticleers coming in as my number 7 team for now.
Yeah, I like a lot of those, the reasons that you gave. And what's ironic is it's going to feel that way for a few teams probably on this list. I like them a whole lot more for those exact reasons. But for my 7, this is where I had Louisiana Tech. I think we're all kind of leaving Reed in the dust on this one, but I am just under where I guess you guys will have them, the Louisiana Tech. And they're going to be able to compete in this conference. I don't know how well, just because they are a win at the line of scrimmage kind of team. They have this is where I lack in the pronunciation department. Trey Kukuk, their quarterback, he's going to run the ball a lot. They're not a pass heavy team. They weren't, at least last year. Nearly 4 players on this team last year went for over 100 rush attempts. And what'll be interesting, I think, for this Louisiana Tech, this Louisiana Tech team, which could end up flipping them all the way to where Reed has them, is if they were lucky last year, because they did finish in the plus category in turnover margin per game last year, but they averaged almost 1.5 giveaways. So it'll be interesting to see if that kind of element where they're running the ball a lot and they're putting the ball on the ground a lot comes back to bite them in a conference with, I wouldn't say necessarily more talent, but definitely that's been more competitive in recent years.
Yeah, I will say though, I definitely like this Louisiana Tech team, which is why I haven't mentioned them yet. And I think Scotty Cumble has them on the rise. You know, I know there may be some doubters. I did see it in the chat from CFB Home, for example, where like La Tech would be an 8-4, 9-3 type team in Conference USA, whereas now that they're in the Sun Belt, their ceiling is a 5-7 team. I disagree with that assessment. I think this is a team that we should expect to see in the bowl game. And I expect them to, dare I say it, be a dark horse contender to make the Sun Belt title game. I like what Scotty Cumble is doing, which obviously is why I haven't named him yet on my list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely sorry,
No, go
AJ,
ahead, Colton. Go
not
ahead.
to
Go
cut
ahead.
you off. I agree. I think they could be a sleeper dark horse just because they are kind of built for that rough style play that's going to be able to have an effect on definitely the lower half of this conference, I believe, but can definitely take them places if they get the efficiency down, especially offensively. But defensively, they were pretty good last year. That, like I said, they attack the line of scrimmage. They win most of the time. They don't do it. They're not a pretty football team. It's very safe to say that they're not going to look flashy and win football games, but I still think they are more than capable of winning more than half of their games this year.
Yeah, I like La Tech. I do. They're a little bit higher on my list, but barely any bit higher than where you've got them, Colton. Yet again, I hate to just keep agreeing with you, Jake, but this is where I've got Coastal Carolina sitting. I like them. I like them a lot. I want them to be a good team. I love the uniforms. Like you said, they have expectations, and I agree with exactly what Colton was saying too. A lot of the things you were saying about them being hype, I feel the same way, which is why I put them at 7. This was a safe bet for me. Dead middle of the pack here. I don't. If they go up, then it's. I'm not really wrong. If they go back, I'm not really wrong. But it is tough looking at them lose their quarterback to a team like Texas. And it's another thing like the AJ Swan going to state. He's not going to start, and I don't really. That's a tough move for me. They did bring in a couple guys out of the portal. I don't really know what that's going to look like for them next season. But I do have a lot of this. I feel a lot about what you said, Jake. I think they've got a good coach. I like the beard. I'm excited about them, and I think that they could be a contender for the Sun Belt. And honestly, it's kind of like a Marshall type team. I could see them being a lot higher than 7, but this was a safe bet for me to just keep them in the middle of the pack. So.
My number 7, I'm going with Marshall here. They bring back a lot of offensive production. I had it pulled up here. Where is it? There it is. They do bring back a lot of offensive production. They bring back their starting quarterback, Carlos Del Rio Wilson. That's a name.
All name guy.
DeMarcus Lacey and Adrian Norton also come back at receiver. The biggest question is, how do they replace Antoine Roberts at running back? But they did retool at running back. They bring in Jamarian Wilcox from Kentucky, who I think could be an impact player out of the backfield. They also brought in a handful of other players in the portal offensively. So I think Marshall has a lot of upside to them. I'm comfortable putting them at 7 here because it is in the upper half of the conference. But I do think they have the upside to potentially be in the top 3 spots in this conference for sure if they hit all the right buttons. So Marshall is definitely one of the teams I'm looking out for in the conference this year, just solely because I do think they have a lot going for them, like in the right direction. I think that like between returning players and the portal additions that they made, I think Marshall has a lot of upside to them.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? And again, it's what we talked about earlier, and I think they have an underrated coach in Tony Gibson. Yeah, I just don't know, and I know that I'm a little bit of an outlier. It seems like compared to like you guys are a lot higher on Marshall than I am.
Just
Colin
wait.
hasn't even
Just
named him
wait.
yet. I just don't think not that I think they got worse. I just don't think that they got better at the end of the day. So it's more of a wait and see for me. And I also generally trust the coaching staffs more on the teams that I do have ahead of Marshall than I do at Tony Gibson, even though he's doing a fine job with the Thundering Herd, though.
If you think you're an outlier, just wait. Just wait, my friend.
Okay, I'm waiting. I'm in my chair, ready to go.
We trust.
I will say for 6, if we're all wrapped up with our 7 spot, my 6, and this might come as a surprise, this is actually where I have Old Dominion, and this is I assume this won't necessarily be popular. I can't speak for you guys. I didn't get to see your list beforehand, but if you have witnessed this offseason for Old Dominion, they lose essentially their entire offense, which it usually spells you're going to take a step back in that regard. Obviously, it is February, almost March, so we could see them go into spring and come out of it, go into fall camp, and be just fine on offense. But they lose Colton Joseph, great name, to Wisconsin. They lose their top 3 wide receivers. They lose one of their running backs, Traquan Jones. They're in a complete offensive rebuild. I would honestly have them lower on this list, but I do think they retain a lot of talent and production on defense. They were, I believe, a top 20 unit in the country defensively last year. I think that keeps them afloat in this conference, but I do have them taking a step back, and I have them at 6 in my power ranking.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, they were a really good team, and I think they've kind of been trending in the right direction the last couple seasons. I've got them a little bit higher for sure, but I do agree. I like your points there, Colton. I think you kind of made me rethink some things there, but I do think they're going to be a little bit higher than I think 6. But it's tough to tell. And yet again, a lot of this is vibes based off Sunbelt stuff. G5 Hive in the comments there is maybe he knows a little bit more than we do on this. It seems like that's his specialty. So, but yeah, I can give you my 6 here. This is where I've got La Tech. Yet again, kind of a safe pick for me because I mean they're coming into the Sunbelt. I completely disagree with. I don't know what you were reading, Jake, about them moving out from the Conference USA to the Sunbelt and taking a step back. I completely disagree with that. I think that this is a good team. I think they've always got some sleeper talent. Yet again, I've said it a couple times already tonight, but I feel like Louisiana programs have the ability to get some good guys out of high school just because of where they're at geographically. And La Tech, for whatever reason, seems to be the next team up behind LSU for most of the time in that regard. Now, they didn't just go crazy in the portal. They actually had one of the worst portal classes coming into this season, but I think that they're in a good spot to at least trend in the right direction. I think that they're going to be okay next year. I don't see them just absolutely dominating the Sun Belt in their first season, but I also don't see them getting dominated. I think they're going to be a good middle of the pack team, kind of like a Coastal Carolina. I'm not really sure where I'm at with them, so I'm just kind of keeping a safe bet here, not putting them in my top 5, but keeping them right outside of it. So
yeah. Now let me ask you this though, At, before we go ahead and move on. Did you take a peek at my notes? Because I actually had Louisiana Tech as my number 6 team as well, like going into this late February and early March timeframe. As of right now, I really like the direction that Sonny Comby has with this program. It took a few years to get there, but I think this program now is trending in the right direction. Finished the year strong. They won their bowl game after a little bit of a rocky like October to early November timeframe. But they got a couple of guys that I'm really excited about that they've returned from last year's team. The one that I'm most excited about, Eli Finley. He is their tight end. He's going to be the vocal point of that offense this upcoming season. He's a second-team all-conference guy. They also have a very dynamic return guy in Dedrick Lanimus. He was a third-team all-conference guy just for kick returns and punt returns. They also added a MJ Moultrie II. He's a safety out of Hampton, but he is someone that flies all around the field for them. 60 combined tackles last year, multiple interceptions as well. I really like Moultrie, and I thought Cumby has them going in a positive direction going into the Sun Belt, and I think they're going to be competitive here in year number 1 in their Sun Belt era.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've got a good chance to be a competitive team. And I know we don't talk a lot about just offensive line guys, but they brought in Ty Hilton from Florida State. And I remember seeing a lot about him coming out of high school. And he, I don't know why I remember that name so vividly, but he was somebody that they were really excited about last season. So that's a guy to think about when you bring in a good OT to protect your quarterback and get you on the outside. I think that just adds a whole level to your team. Especially in a Sun Belt conference. If you can have a dominant offensive line in the Sun Belt conference, you can win it. I mean, that's kind of where you start. So
yeah, one of the things that I love to point out, like real fast, because I want to give Reed a hard time. One of these things is certainly like the other here. So it's going to be fascinating to see who ends up being right, and if the three of us that like end up being a complete doofuses, and Reed is just the ultimate ball knower.
I have had bad predictions before, but which one? I mean, how we all have had bad predictions before.
That's right. Yeah. Someone's going to be wrong here.
Not me. All my predictions pan out. But for G5 Hive in the chat, this is a power. There are no division lines here. This is a pure power ranking. Old Dominion could very well finish way higher in this, but this is just our general thoughts in the month of February. This is not a record prediction, so they could very well finish way higher.
Yeah, and that's a fair point as well. Like this is not like us giving record predictions by any means, and not taking into account divisions either. Just who we think is the best team, like 1 through 14, irregardless of division. So appreciate you calling it, like pointing it out. No one mentioned it at the beginning, but that was over an hour ago, and we have little pea brains.
Also, shout out to G5 Hive.
Yeah, shout out.
Yeah, great work over there. Make sure you guys go check him out. I personally love his work, and I appreciate him like being here in the chat as well.
For sure.
We need a G5 connoisseur leading us in the right direction here. That's for sure.
Yes.
Oh yeah. If anybody can tell us off, it's definitely the guy named G5 Hive.
Yeah. Yeah. My number 16, I'm going with the boys on the teal. I'm going with the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina. This is solely based on Ryan Beard. I think he's a very underrated hire for Coastal Carolina, and he brings a lot of production from Missouri State with him. So I got to rock with the Chanticleers here. I think I'm not going to repeat everything that AT and Jake were saying about them, but I love the Ryan Beard hire. I think he has shown that he's a program builder at Missouri State, and I think he very well so could replicate it at Coastal Carolina. So not saying that they go on and win the conference here in year one, but they are definitely trending back in the right direction under his helm for sure.
Yeah, which leads us now into our onto our top 5. You know, I'm definitely going to be curious to see like for you, Colin, like how high you have like Coastal Carolina. I'm also like I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts on South Alabama, because I'm definitely like going to be sticking out like a sore thumb, like Reed is with Louisiana Tech. So you know, when it gets to that point, I'm very curious to hear what you guys think about South Alabama that you're seeing that's dramatically different on my end. But as we kick things off with this top 5. This is actually where I do have Georgia Southern. First and foremost, I will say this about Georgia Southern. I know that J.C. French was a little bit of a volatile quarterback. That is an experienced quarterback, and it sucked to have him like go out the door. And they lost like a couple of other people as well. But with that being said, if there's anyone that I trust with offense in this conference, it is Clay Helton. We've seen him do it at USC before he left Los Angeles when he led them to a Pac-12 title back in 2017. And then his 5 years at Georgia Southern thus far, you know, that program continues to trend in a positive direction. Took a little bit of a step back last year, but I do like the transfer portal additions on the defensive side of the ball as well. I trust him with the offense. That defense is going to have some nasty pieces on here, man. Omarion Brown and Anthony Bynum, both of those guys coming in through a transfer portal. They are going to be a nasty duo in terms of getting in that backfield. They also brought in a couple of defensive pieces from Abilene Christian that were star players at the FCS level as well, that I think are going to translate very well for Georgia Southern. And then just a little bit of a dart throw as well. Andre Green transfers in from Virginia, former 4-star recruit, very nice wide receiver. He'll pair up with King Phillips, potential all-name guy as well, coming in from Texas A&M Kingsville. So listen, losing your quarterback, it's tough, but if anyone can navigate, you know, losing a starting quarterback and having maybe a little bit more inexperience on the offensive side of the ball at the most important position, it's Clay Helton. So I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to him in this situation and put Georgia Southern as my number 5 team.
Did you say who they added at quarterback?
I saw that they added some pieces, but they weren't pieces that played a lot of football necessarily. So that's going to be interesting to see.
They do add, from my research, they add Max Johnson.
Yes.
Formerly of North Carolina. And like we said, he hasn't, you know, seen the elite of the elite yet at quarterback, but I definitely still think getting a guy with that much experience in college, we'll say my guess is 15 years playing college football. It's definitely going to help rather than hurt, in my opinion. And this is also where I have Georgia Southern. They lose a ton of production on offense, but like I said, they add Max Johnson. They return a modest amount of snaps on both lines, and like Jake just said, it's Clay Helton. I trust Clay Helton to finish in the top half. I expect him to finish in the 6th to 8th win range, which is about where they finish every single year. So this is once again one of the teams that I think is going to perennially be in the top half, and I agree with Jake at number 5.
Yeah, this is where I have the old USA, South Alabama, and honestly, completely hat in hand here. I think this is too high. I'm not necessarily just hype on them. Probably should have had them lower. I'm looking back at my notes and I'm going, why have I not picked them already? If I'm being completely honest, but I do think that they have the ability to be a better football team than they have been. It is good to keep a coach around. Coach has got a fantastic name as well. But I'm just not super hype on them. I think that they've got to prove themselves here. I do think that I could probably have put them around like the 9 mark and pushed everybody else up. But we've got them here sitting at 5 right now, so I'm not. I don't know. Maybe this is a better pick than I feel like it. But just hat in hand here. I think that I kind of missed it and got them a little higher than I thought. So excited to see what Colton and Reed have because they got them as well. So maybe you guys can sell me on them here, but I'm not sure yet. So.
AT, don't feel too bad because I also have South Alabama here at number 5. I'm higher on them obviously than Jake is because one, Major Applewhite, they keep their head coach. Can't go wrong with that. He also retooled basically the entire staff. So I think retooling the entire staff, just getting new faces in there, potentially new schemes, I think could benefit them in the long run, especially because they're bringing back a lot of production offensively, which I think is going to be key for them. Bishop Davenport could potentially be a part of the all-name team. Returns at quarterback. Kentrell Bullock in the backfield. Voisin was one of their top receivers, over 700 yards. He returns at wide receiver. So I think having that continuity offensively is going to help them. And notably, like I said, most of their defensive changes were on, or most of their coaching changes were on the defensive side. So I think just having new faces in the building on the defensive side, leading that unit, I think could play drastically to how South Alabama shakes out defensively. So I'm confident putting them here at 5. I mean, obviously, again, it's the end of February, so we have no idea. But I'm confident on South Alabama, being in that upper tier of the conference for sure.
I'll be honest. The green flag for me for them is that they did retool their entire. I think he's trying to do a really good job at getting a staff in. Staff's obviously probably the number one thing you got to do as a coach. That was like the number one big hype for me. But they just with where they've been and where he's been since he's still been the head coach, that's kind of why I was thinking a middle pack type team because we just don't know with South Alabama. But I do think he's done a really good job getting staff in. It seems like he really took time to hire this season. So that I completely agree with your assessment there, Reed. I think the staff is going to be a big change for South Alabama. And I'm excited about that. Hopefully they can have some, trend in the right direction. It's fun to watch.
Well, clearly Colton likes it enough to put him in this top 4. So.
Right.
Well, it sounds like Reed talked you into it, AT. I'm going to sweet talk you just a little bit more.
Give me some.
South Alabama's a team that likes to run the ball. They ran it 61% of the time, not super efficiently. So like Reed said, they do lose production at running back, but they line up nicely behind him. I think they're going to be able to run the ball once again this year. Like Reed said, Bishop Davenport, great name. He's not terrible. He's not, I wouldn't say elite, definitely would not say elite, but
he's
in
not
my
lighting
opinion,
the world on fire, that's for sure.
No, I mean, maybe next year, but definitely not last year. They retain key pieces in their front 7, which is very, very important for me. Their biggest concern, in my opinion, is secondary, but I think you can get away with that being your biggest weakness in a conference like this that is going to be so volatile. Overall, I do like them a lot. I think they're going to be able to run the ball more efficiently. That's a hard word to say than they were able to last year, although they do lose a lot of volume from last season. So that is why I have them here at 4. And now we can just get them completely out of our system. South Alabama.
And you're right. They're a good running team. They led the Sun Belt in his first year there in rushing touchdowns. I'm pretty sure. So I mean that was another thing I wrote down. They can run the ball well. So I definitely had them high. I'm nervous that they're a little bit too high on the list for me now. But
if you're nervous, there's a few teams on here that you guys have on the board and we're still waiting on them from me. I think like we said, with their coordinator situation getting more flexible, I think that raises their ceiling at least. So that is why I'm higher on them. I think they're going to be able to establish an identity and get out there, just work at it better than they were last year. Obviously, they won 4 games last year, but that is why I think they have a higher upside this year than I probably had for them going into last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know, Colin, like you mentioned it, like there's it seems like for all of us, we all have like a team or two that everyone else has already talked about that we haven't even discussed. I'm going to go ahead and get one of those teams off my board personally. So I had Arkansas State coming in here as my number 4 team, which will probably come as a little bit of a surprise, given that Jalen Rayner did transfer. He left to play at Iowa State now, which is ironically a team that he did play with, but I actually don't think that's the worst thing in the world. For as dynamic of a quarterback that Jalen Rayner was, one weakness in his game, though, was that he didn't do the best job of taking care of the football. This was someone that did have, 10 plus interceptions over the course of his 2 years that he was the starter at Arkansas State. So, losing a dynamic player, losing that experience, that's tough. But I do think that what we will end up seeing is a change in philosophy from Butch Jones. In terms of how they attack things on offense. And this is one of the faster offenses in the country. They brought in a really dynamic running back. I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. Corey Reddick. He transfers in from Odessa State, one of the best D2 programs in the country. Very dynamic running back, over 750 scrimmage yards, 7 touchdowns last year. The defense could also be improved as well. And that's really what's always held Butch Jones back. Butch knows offense. I think we can all agree on that. Butch knows the offense. But defensively, I like the defensive pieces that they added. They added Shakai Woods from Mid-Tennessee for an interior defensive lineman to have over 5 TFLs. That's certainly not nothing because they're always asked to take on double teams. So I think that's a really big deal. They also brought in Micaiah Shaheed, who flies all around the field. One of those safeties that likes to play in the box, had 69 tackles. I think that's really nice personally as well. So because I know Butch knows offense and it's one of the tougher offensive styles to stop, I'm actually not as concerned about the Jalen Rayner transfer as many other people are, which is why I have Arkansas State coming in as my number 4 team in the conference.
Bold.
I definitely disagree, but I think our graphic here speaks for itself in that regard.
Yeah, we have them pretty low. I mean, they're kind of mid pack for me. But for my number 4, this is where I got Georgia Southern. Not to beat a dead horse with what you guys just got done saying at y'all's number 5 spot, but one thing I will add is that this is another coach has added a lot of staff this year in Clay Helton. I think that they're always a team that's going to compete in the conference. They're always going to win about 4 to 5 games a year conference play. So I think Georgia Southern's got the right team. I think that I'm not just loving the coach, but I'm also not hating him. So I think they've got a good chance to finish in the top 4 to 5 range, 4 to 6 range, I should say. So.
For my number 4 team, I am going to go with Old Dominion here. Exactly for what Colton was talking about them. I think they regress a little bit just solely because it is hard to replace the production of your starting quarterback and your top 3 receivers. But I think Ricky Ronnie can, salvage a pretty solid season for ODU. And exactly like G5 High said in the chat earlier, Hennikel is a quarterback to watch out for in this conference. If you watched him in their bowl game last year, he was explosive for sure. So I think ODU could be one of the teams that takes a little bit of regression. But I still have him obviously here in the top 4 of the conference. So this is where I have the Monarchs of ODU.
Yeah, and Old Dominion is certainly going to be one of those fascinating teams to watch. And I actually really like Ricky Ron as well. I think he's someone that also has the program going like in the right direction. And hey, listen, Ricky Ron had the longest rushing touchdown against Indiana last year. That's not nothing. I'm just saying.
And that man now plays for Wisconsin.
But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into like the number 3 team that I have on this list though, and it's a team that was discussed like earlier in the live stream, but it hasn't been brought up in a very long time. I got the Troy Trojans coming here as my number 3 team in the Sun Belt. First and foremost, I think this is one of the best. This is one of the best programs in this conference. Even with the changes that you see at the coaching position, going from John Summerall and handing over to Gerard Parker, year number 1, there was a little bit of a hiccup, but then, year 2, we see them pick things right up to where they left off from when John Summerall was the head coach, right? We saw them go to the Sun Belt Championship game, and even though they came in as a heavy underdog, they gave James Madison a 4-quarter fight. So I really like what I saw from this James Madison football team. I still think they're going to be nasty defensively as well. Like Keno Jones, like for example, transferring in from Barton College, he had over 100 tackles last year, and he's going to be someone that's going to come in and be a potential leader of this defense for Troy. That was a big reason why they made the Sun Belt Championship last year. Now, that being said, Colin has some concerns on the offensive side of the ball. What I like to counter with is I don't think their offense is going to be worse than last year, right? So I think we see the defense, continue its level of play. The offense can really only get better. I don't see them getting any worse, right? So because of that, I see Troy being the type of team that's going to be right in that hunt to go to a Sun Belt title game. That's why I have them as my number 3 team in this conference.
Yeah, and to be fair, even though they did suck on offense last year, they still, like you said, made the conference title game, won 8 games. So obviously something is going right. Whereas I see it as more of an anomaly. There definitely is room for conversation that they are trending up under Gerard Parker. So I do see that. And honestly, until you said the word Troy, I had forgotten that I put them at 12. So that was a bit of a shock. It seems everybody else is very high on Troy, right? Obviously, I am not as so.
Yeah, this is exactly where I have them too. I think me and Jake just took the same notes, obviously. But I think they're a good team. They're always a top of the conference team. They're always somebody to look out for. Yet again, I know I speak about my Mississippi State a lot, but this is always a team that we play these guys like every 3 to 4 years, and I hate it. I cannot stand playing Troy because I'm like, if we're gonna pick a G5 team, let's go get somebody doesn't have a chance to beat us. And for whatever reason, Troy always gives us a good fight. Even when they're down, they always have a quarterback that comes out of nowhere that plays well. I'm just going to end up rehashing everything you just said, Jake, but I feel like I'm in the same boat as you are. They didn't lose a ton. They didn't gain a ton. But I think that they're in a good position to go and be a good football team this year. I've got them in the top 4 at least in this conference. So,
well, here is where I finally have Marshall. And for the biggest reason is that we've talked about Marshall already 3 times so far, is that they didn't fall off a cliff last year. And if you were following the sport the past couple of years, obviously Charles Huff leaves to Southern Miss, then he goes to Memphis. We've already gone over that, but he gutted that roster like we talked about. In comes Tony Gibson, rights the ship, honestly, was in bowl contention eligibility. And to me, that says more about this team and this coach that they've gotten than almost anything that we've talked about so far. On top of that, I think they made a very, very underrated addition in the transfer portal. I hope G5 Hive, if you're in here still, you can back me up on this one. Jamarian Wilcox of Kentucky. He missed 2025 for Kentucky, and he was also very low on the depth chart. But in 2024, 600 yards with the Wildcats, 6.4 yards per carry. I think he has a ton of upside on this offense. I think he adds an element that they were more so lacking last year. On top of that, like we talked about, Del Rio was solid. He was very efficient, whereas not like super elite, super explosive, super productive. He was very efficient. So I'm very high on this team overall. obviously being in the top 3. Thank you, G5
Look
Hive
at that stamp
for
of
the
approval.
stamp of approval. But that is overall, I think this offense improves with that addition on top of the quarterbacks and the sizes, adding size on both offensive and defensive line. Make this a very, very interesting. I'm super optimistic about this team going into next year.
I agree with everything you said, Colton. I think they've got a good chance to be a good football team. I hope they are. I think it's fun when Marshall's when we are Marshall, I should say. Shout out to the movie there. But yeah, I think this is a good team, and I honestly hope you're right. But they were a safe bet for me to put them middle of the pack, so that's what I did. So
Don't hate it.
Totally agree with it. Totally agree with AT. I feel like it was safe to put him in the middle of the pack here. Who is not going to be in the middle of the pack is the Georgia Southern Eagles. I really like their portal class. Some could say the best portal class in the conference, potentially, maybe. A handful of receivers, as we said earlier. Max Johnson coming over from North Carolina. He brings experience. This is going to be his first real time as, a true starter. And just scrolling through their list of transfers here, one of the best player names I think I've seen, or at least we've talked about all night, Mo Clipper Jr. M.O. Clipper Jr. as an interior offensive lineman coming into Georgia Southern. So if that's not something to get excited about, I don't know what is. Yeah, as the other 3 have talked about, Clay Helton, I'm very confident that he takes this group, especially this transfer portal group, and is very productive with it. He knows how to coach offense. They're going to be able to put up points, that's for sure. So I'm very high on Georgia Southern here. I think they're going to be competing for the conference championship. They're going to be in that conversation all year, in my opinion. So Georgia Southern, I'm going to slot them in the number 3 spot.
Seems we're all kind of in agreement there.
yeah, good team. Going to be a good team.
Yeah, I think all of us are I think we all like the Eagles, like to a varying degree, but it's one of the few teams that we have on here where we have a similar range, or we certainly have like outliers for many of the other teams that we have on our list here tonight. But seems like I'm going to be a little bit higher on this team than a couple of you guys here tonight. I'm going with Old Dominion. They're my number 2 team, and I know that there are some concerns about their losses in the transfer portal. So this was how I saw the Sun Belt last year. So we saw James Madison. They were the tier 1. They were the unquestionable tier 1, and they were kind of in a tier of their own. I had Old Dominion in that tier 2, and Old Dominion was kind of in their own right, almost in a tier of their own, even though they didn't make the conference championship game because of that divisional format. I thought they were a better football team than Troy, and I thought if Old Dominion and James Madison, we saw them play in the regular season. For me, that was a true Sun Belt championship game. So I do think Old Dominion is worse than last year, but it's to a point where the other teams are starting to catch up to Old Dominion, but they haven't surpassed Old Dominion, right? So, like teams that I have, like such as Troy, Arkansas State, Georgia Southern, and even like Louisiana Tech as well. They're all catching up to Old Dominion. They've closed the gap in my mind. But I still trust Ricky Ron and what he's building ultimately with this Monarchs team. And they've retooled their offense a little bit. They got a couple of players I think are going to be potential stars in Hunter Patterson and Zion Agnew as well. I think both of them are going to be very good pieces. So I really like this Old Dominion team coming in at number 2 for me.
Yeah, I definitely see where you guys are higher on Old Dominion than me. For me, it's just it's hard to replicate that kind of production, and for them to be as good as they were last year on defense is a big question. I wouldn't be surprised if they were, but it's hard for these teams who lose obviously a ton of stuff in the portal, a lot of production in the portal, to maintain in one area and get better when they lose as much as they have on an offense. Obviously, they were very good both offensively and defensively last year. My biggest reason for their taking a step back, obviously, was the offense. But for my 2, this is another one that I disagree on with the group. It is Coastal Carolina. I love Ryan Beard, and that is about as far as my analysis here goes. I love Ryan Beard. Very good team Missouri State was in the FCS level. They jump immediately to the group of 5 level, and they're in bowl contention. And that's with a roster that wasn't exactly up to snuff in the group of 5. It wasn't bad, but definitely wasn't as good as some of these teams. And I think at Coastal Carolina, like we've talked about, a culture of success. They have been very successful in the past. I think adding a guy like Ryan Beard, who is a winner, is the biggest thing. But to add to that, they retain a ton of snaps on the offensive line, which I think is awesome. It's one of the most important things in football is the offensive line. We saw it with the national championship team, probably the best offensive line in football. I think them retaining that talent at offensive line is good. The defense is my biggest worry. Obviously, don't retain that much more talent, but they do add size, especially on the defensive line, and a guy like Ahmad Poole, 3.5 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles. That's a playmaker. They add Tristan Gardner at wide receiver, 450 yards, 6 touchdowns. Dalen Alexander, 5.3 yards per carry. They got playmakers, in my opinion. I think this is a team who it's going to shock a lot of people that they're instantly as good as I think they will be. But I think they do come out this season, and they're competing towards the top of this conference.
Yeah, Colton, I always agree with what you say, and it's the exact reason I put these guys in the middle of the pack because it's hard for me to give a good answer. I love that you just commit. That's awesome. But yeah, it's tough for me to just fully commit to these Coastal Carolina teams. I fear the Beard though. I'm right there with you. Fear the Beard for sure. I think he's a heck of a coach. I was waiting. I didn't want to just do it again and just say, yeah, Jake, same thing here. I got ODU. But it's exactly where I'm at. I think they're going to be a good team. You mentioned some of the stuff about their quarterback. They did lose a really good quarterback, Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year last season. He was also up for a Davey O'Brien Award. Obviously, 2,600 passing yards, over 1,000 rushing yards. But it's what G5 Hive said in the chat too. About to butcher another name. Quinn Heichel is going to be a good quarterback for him. He took over in the bowl game, and I think he's a really, really good player. I'm excited to watch him. I think that is a name to remember there. And yeah, I think Old Dominion is just going to continue to be a top echelon team in the Sun Belt. They have been for a while now, and they're always currently trending in the right direction. I'm not saying they're going to be as good as they were, but it just feels like to me that a lot of the players that they lose are going to the P4, which means they're developing really well, and they are still grabbing some guys out of the P4 too. So I think they can evaluate, and I think they can develop, and I think that's why I've got them at number 2 right now. So. Oh, and they also did. I wanted to shout. They had a linebacker too, Montreal Chapman, that they added. It's a dog. Watched him a lot out of high school, and remember him being pretty touted recruit. So they added him. I think he's going to be a day 1 addition for them as well.
Yeah, so you checked the X-ray and everything. And you saw that he's got that dog in him. Is that what I'm hearing?
He's got that dog in it for sure.
Yeah. We always appreciate the medical report from AT. In anything. I'm very curious. I'm seeing how this board is shaking out right now. It looks like we might be unanimous on number 1, but I'm seeing if Reed, are you going to be one to break it, or are we going to all agree for once on where our team is going to land?
I'm not going to break it. I'm going with the Troy Trojans at 2. The runner-ups from last season. I think one of the most underrated coordinator hires in all of FBS football. Adam Austin. They hired Adam Austin as their offensive coordinator from Tarleton State. He led the number 1 offense in the FCS last season. So obviously, as Colton alluded to, Troy was very, very poor offensively last year, but still ended up winning 8 games. So as long as they can semi-replicate that defensive output, I think they're going to take a massive step forward offensively with Adam Austin at the helm as offensive coordinator. And again, I think their offensive production that they're returning is good enough with a good hire at offensive coordinator that they combine together to be a very productive unit in 2026. So I have the Troy Trojans in my 2nd spot. Not saying that they are the runner-up in the conference again, but I am comfortable with them being in the upper echelon of the Sun Belt once again in 2026.
Big spoilers, man. Come on.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, we didn't even get to say it.
I know. how dare I like spoil things, but yeah, you can kind of see by process of elimination. No, I have James Madison as my number one team. And again, it goes down to what we talked about earlier. I had James Madison in the tier of their own, and I also understand that James Madison, they lost a lot of pieces in the transfer portal after they made their college football playoff appearance. But I will say at the same time, though, I thought Billy Napier also did a really fantastic job of going into the transfer portal on the back end, not only finding quality players with upside, but finding players that whether it is from the G5 ranks, from the FCS ranks, or in one case, like even a P4 guy that has potential breakout potential. For me, I thought James Madison did a really good job of finding production on the back end, because there's definitely nothing wrong with bringing in players that have a lot of experience playing football. And Billy Napier did that. And we also saw it alluded in chat as well. Billy Napier understands the Sun Belt. He knows how to win in the Sun Belt as well. And also, James Madison, that is a team that has the organizational alignment from the administration at the top down to the head coaching staff. They have a firm understanding of what they are, and I think that's going to continue. So not only did I have James Madison as my number one team in this conference, but I still frankly have James Madison in a tier of their own as of right now.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, you can go ahead, AT.
No, I mean, I don't have much to say, to be honest. I mean, we're obviously all in a consensus here that this is the number one team. They're dominant right now. Until proven otherwise, I think that this team has to stay number one. I mean, they've been good for a while now. It seems like they've done a fantastic job hiring every single year. You just see what they do. They're always adding good pieces. They lost some guys in the portal, but to me, this isn't until proven otherwise. They're the best team in the conference and one of the best teams in the G5. I will say, obviously, the pressure at Florida is insane, but it almost feels like this might even be more pressure, more of a pressure cooker for Billy Napier because he is Sunbelt Billy. So if he can't come and win in the Sunbelt at James Madison, which is probably the best team in the Sunbelt, where does he go from here?
And not to mention also who he's following after. I mean, he's going to follow after two incredible head coaches that James Madison had over the years, whether it's Curt Cignetti, and we saw what Curt Cignetti has done at Indiana since then, winning a national championship in spite of being in the 70s, like an in-town composite, which is completely unheard of. And then Bob Chesney, he led them over the mountaintop and made the college football playoff. Even get Oregon a little bit of a tough time in the second half as well. So that's the two coaches that Billy Napier is going to follow after. And we saw him fail recently at Florida. So this is an opportunity to really replenish his reputation, but also at the same time, if he can't figure it out at James Madison, I mean, it's going to be one of those things where he's going to have to be a passing coordinator specialist or something if he ever wants to work his way back up.
Yeah, or he could just retire with that buyout he got from Florida. I'd probably just be in Greece somewhere in a nice house. But I guess that's why I'll never be a head coach. So
I mean, true.
I would agree with all the things you guys said, and I would add he's great at acquiring talent. Now, implementing that talent in an offense was his biggest struggle at Florida, and ultimately why he got fired, in my opinion. But in my eyes, this is kind of a Dan Mullen to UNLV thing, and it's ironic that they were both Florida coaches. That Billy Napier now ends up at the G5 at James Madison. I think they're going to obviously they've built through the transfer portal mainly, which is how you should do it when you are building a completely new roster. But I would like to point out once again, Mr. G5 Hive in the chat had a good point. He spent a lot of years in the Sun Belt and the West, and now he's in the East with teams like Old Dominion, Georgia Southern. It's going to be a little bit more difficult. And I think as high as I was on UNLV with Dan Mullen this year, they had a tougher time than I expected. Still made the conference title game, but it was by some random computer from who knows where deciding the ranking in that aspect. I think it could be similar for Billy Napier at James Madison. I think he will have James Madison towards the top. Definitely could with the talent level in the East Division being just a little bit better usually. That he does struggle at James Madison in his first year, but I like him. I think it's a very safe pick to have James Madison once again at the top of the conference next year.
Yeah, not much to add for me. I think this is solely based on their track record of acquiring a good head coach. I mean, we've seen it Kurt Signetti to Bob Chesney and now with Billy Napier. I think this is a good bounce back spot for him. I've said this before. I think just this just to get his feet back under him at a level that he's very familiar with and has proven to be successful at James Madison, I think is a good hire for them, especially coming off the successes of their last two head coaches. So I think I think Billy Napier is a good fit for JMU, and I don't think they fall off too much in his tenure.
Yeah, and it might be one of those situations where, we see James Madison come back to earth a little bit, just because it is a brand new coaching staff and it is a new roster. But again, last year, James Madison was in a tier of its own. So if James Madison is 75 or 80% of the team that they were last year, I still think that they're going to be fine, personally.
Yeah.
I think it's very safe to say that.
And the pressure's still there too. I mean, that's like a big thing. I feel like that they've been so good that the expectations are high for them, which we'll see how Billy can thrive. Can he survive or can he thrive there? I would love to see them continue that. I love James Madison as a good competitive program. Want to see him back in the playoff. Want to see him back at the top of the G5, but time will tell. So.
All right, but with that being said, boys, we went through the entire Sun Belt here tonight. Very excited about what we're going to continue to have. This is something that we're going to continue for the next month and a half as we continue to roll through the spring and getting a good first look at these teams. Before we sign off here tonight, gentlemen, any final thoughts about this concoction that we just put together as a group?
Louisiana Tech, do not let me down.
I think we covered enough ground across the board to where if all of us have some bad picks, at least we all covered this entire spread here. All of us were a little bit right, I think, next year.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree. Colton might be the absolute GOAT at the end of this if a lot of his stuff comes out right. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where Reed said Louisiana Tech, I need about 1, 2, 6, 8. I need a few teams to be a lot better than, I guess, the consensus to not look like an absolute crazy person.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Like when we look back at this at January or February, like this time next year after the national title game, and just really see like what went right or what went wrong. The thing that I'm nervous about, not that I don't believe in Billy Napier, but it's just the fact that we all have him at number one as a consensus. There's one that I think could blow up in our faces. That would be the one for sure. If Billy Napier is not that guy.
Yeah, I think it's a safe bet. And I hate to keep saying that. That's kind of my list here. I think JMU is a safe bet. Yet again, until proven otherwise, they're the best team in the conference. They're the best one of the best G5 programs. So I think it's not. I don't think it's a bad play to put them at number one, but we all could be eating some crap at the end of the season here. So
For sure.
All right, but with that being said, fellas, it has been an incredible show tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching and enjoying it with us this past hour and a half. If you haven't done so already, but you made it through this entire show, hit that like and subscribe button. It really does mean the world to me. It helps grow this channel, not just on the YouTube platform, but on other platforms as well. If you're watching on another platform, feel free to hit the follow button on there as well. But with that being said, I am Jake, your main host of College Football Red Zone, wishing you guys all a good night.